Hey folks, this is Manuel from Steadybit. In this video, we want to focus on how you can use Steadybit to explore your system, to understand how it is distributed, and how you can use this information to check whether a certain chaos engineering experiment makes sense to be executed. This is also pretty great whenever you're responsible for rolling out chaos engineering into your organization and you want to check what kind of infrastructure components, what kind of resources and redundancy a dedicated team is using to come up with some great chaos engineering experiment suggestions. For that, you can jump into the Explorer, and we are now switching into an environment connected to an AWS EKS Kubernetes cluster, which simply contains a little bit more infrastructure components. You can see now in the Explorer, we are visualizing your infrastructure components. And whenever you're using a Kubernetes cluster, we are automatically showing you this Kubernetes cluster in a pre-configured view. Also, when you're using a different kind of setup, Explorer can be pretty useful for you because it can be totally customized. You can see at the right-hand side, I'm seeing the Kubernetes cluster, and at the left-hand side, the actual view configuration. So we have decided to first group by the Kubernetes cluster name, followed by the namespace, and then the workload owner, which is exactly what we're seeing at the right-hand side, a cluster name, namespace, and actual workload owners, like for instance, deployments. And then when we're zooming in a little bit in this cluster, we can see that we have different kind of deployments here. And each of those deployments include now everything that is belonging to that specific deployment. Like for instance, containers, pods, nodes, the deployment itself. Also, we are coloring currently based on the host name on which a specific resource is running on. And this way you can easily spot that there are some deployments which are only running on a single node, whereas other are running on multiple nodes. Now you can also use the Explorer to filter down on those targets to easily spot them and identify a possible next good chaos engineering experiment. For that, you can always create a new view in Steadybit. Per default is an empty view, and you see all targets discovered by Steadybit. And we can now filter, group, size, and color by to narrow down to the actual targets or information that we are looking for. So let's first filter, and we want to identify, in our case, all the Kubernetes deployments which are only running on a single node. For that, I can first filter by target type to only see Kubernetes deployments. And you can see that you're benefiting from the automatic discovery data as well as auto suggestion in the query language. And once I'm applying it, you can see that the right-hand side is narrowing down. I see now all deployments in my Kubernetes cluster. I can also filter it down based on a specific namespace or Kubernetes label, because maybe I know which team I want to approach next and what kind of infrastructure components they are responsible for. In our case, we want to focus on the Steadybit demo namespace and apply it as well. And now you can see that we have a bunch of deployments at the right-hand side. We can also give them names by grouping by the Kubernetes deployment attribute. Now we can actually see all of the deployments which are in use in the particular namespace. Now to filter only those out which are running on a single node, we can easily filter down and say like, we are expecting that the host.hostname attribute, which is also added to the Kubernetes deployment, exists only once. And now you can see I've easily identified 3 cases. I can also cross-validate by opening up the Kubernetes deployment of orders, for instance. Now I can see all the attributes discovered for that particular target. And if I scroll down to the hostname, I can see, yep, it's exactly running only on one single node. I can also now double check whether it's at least having 2 pods running. And this way it's more a Kubernetes issue and not so much an applications issue. And when I now look at the Kubernetes pod names, I can see that in here we have 2 different pods running. So this is already looking good. The application seems to provide redundancy, but now I need to take care of really spreading it across different nodes in my Kubernetes cluster. Now I can simply save this view. Here we go. I can easily access all my saved views over here and also explore some of the views that are automatically shared by Steadybit, depending on the infrastructure components you are using. Like for instance, a view to identify which Kubernetes workload resources are running in which AWS availability zones, or a double checking whether all containers across the organization, across your Kubernetes clusters are using the same container runtime, for instance, when you're currently migrating to a new one. Now, the Explorer is a really powerful way to explore your system and search for reliability issues, even without running an experiment. But there's also something integrated into the Explorer that makes it easier to check for violations of best practices in your system, which is called advice. And that's something we will cover in the next video. Thanks for watching and take care.